Donald Trump thinks his taste is America's taste. Look, we know he's a narcissist and on a level that we've never experienced before. But some of this stuff is pretty ugly that he's done. I mean, my God, what he's done to the Oval Office. I mean, it looks like it reminds me of History of the World Part 1 when they're in at Versailles, and just sort of the over the top way that the French royalty looks and behaves. I guess at this point I kind of wish Donald Trump were wearing a powdered wig. But let me continue. So where are we with oversight? When the Constitution gave Congress the power to investigate, it wasn't supposed to depend on who was in the White House. The purpose was to keep the executive accountable no matter the party. But in 2025, the House Oversight Committee looks more like an opposition research shop than a constitutional watchdog. The Republican majority, believe it or not, continues to pour resources into investigating the Biden family. That's a probe that began in 2023. It's yet to be able to prove significant wrongdoing by the president himself. But it's still going. The Democratic minority has been left to pick up whatever institutional slack there is. They have launched their own letters and inquiries into Trump's businesses, the Qatar jet, potential conflicts of interest that dwarf anything Hunter Biden ever touched. And let me just state this clearly, because I been one of these people. I think that what Hunter Biden and Frank Biden did while Biden was president was awful. It set a terrible precedent. They both profited off their last name for nothing they did, but for what Joe Biden did and for what office Joe Biden held, be it the vice presidency or the presidency. They're not the first. They're certainly not going to be the last. And they're not the most egregious. It is wrong. And if you want to hold Donald Trump's corruption against him, you better be on your own high ground. And that's the problem here. Democrats are not on high ground, thanks to the Biden family, even though everything Hunter Biden did pales in comparison of what the Trumps are doing to the American taxpayer. This is how polarization is going to corrode the mechanics of accountability. If we get down this road where each side only investigates the other's family, no one will investigate power itself. And that's what this was all supposed to be about. So let's go back to this thought experiment. If the Biden family were doing what the Trump family is doing right now, if Joe Biden were getting a $400 million jet, or if Hunter had launched a meme coin that enriched himself through speculative trading, the House Oversight Committee would be holding hearings every single week. You'd see subpoenas flying faster than you can say influence peddling. Republicans would be talking about impeachment, national security, and the corruption at the highest levels. We'd probably have graphics titled Crypto Gate and Air Force Hunter. But because the last name is Trump, and because the House Republicans are in charge, and they're so afraid of Donald Trump, the same behavior is normalized. Instead, you get things like when Mike Johnson says, well, he's very transparent, and he tells the American people exactly what he's going to do. You might as well, Speaker Johnson, say he waves at the security camera as he shoplifts the American taxpayer. And here's the part we don't want to admit. This is not about Trump. It's about what happens to Congress when oversight becomes partisan entertainment instead of institutional discipline. Oversight used to be a bit more bipartisan. During Watergate, both parties eventually agreed that no president should use public office for private gain. In the 90s, the Clinton-era investigations into Whitewater, travel office, campaign fundraising were aggressive, mostly partisan, but and sometimes came across excessive, but it still operated under a shared understanding that the presidency itself was accountable to Congress. And at least those House Republicans were trying to broaden things out. That principle is just gone. Republicans only investigate Democrats. They've not investigated a Republican seriously. Democrats have only been investigating Trump. Shoot, they were not interested in Epstein while they were in charge, and only interested in it when it suddenly became an issue for Trump. The public has stopped believing that oversight is about truth. And why should they? Because oversight is about politics, right? Whoever's got the power of oversight goes after political enemies. Pure and simple. It is not about right and wrong. It is about right and left. That is an erosion of trust, and that's the real casualty here. So every time oversight becomes partisan theater, real corruption gets normalized. It tells future presidents, if your party controls the House, you're untouchable. That's why Donald Trump is so desperate to keep the House of Representatives. That's why this redistricting, aggressive redistricting issue is happening. If he can hang on to the House, he prevents any sort of oversight of his business dealings. But I'll tell you this, if Democrats get control of the House, they'll get subpoena power. And perhaps Trump will just stonewall. Private business can't stonewall. The companies that have essentially decided to allow themselves to be shaken down, to be extorted, to pay to play, all of them are going to have to lawyer up. They're all going to be susceptible to subpoenas, and they should be. They participated in this scam, in this grift. They knew better. The law was actually on their side. They didn't have to participate. If anything, when approached essentially for a pay to play or an extortion price, they could have gone to law enforcement. However, what do? Do you go to the FBI? Does Kash Patel investigate? This is the situation we now live in. So, Matt, I mean, I don't want to say, this is like the slight empathy I have for the business community on this. If you're being extorted by this president, where do you go? Can you go to the FBI? Can you go to your local U.S. attorney? Can you go to Congress? No, and no. I think this is bad politics for the Republicans. I think what has happened, what Mike Johnson has done by surrendering during this government shutdown and disappearing from Washington, we've already had this sort of look the other way attitude when it comes to all the different things. And all I focused on was the personal enrichment issues. I didn't even get to the abuse of power as a governing official with what's happening with ICE and the masked agents, what's happening with Venezuela. All of this is under the purview of Congress. They are supposed to be the check and balance. They are handing this Republican majority and Speaker Mike Johnson easily now. Mike Johnson is now the weakest speaker we've ever had. I thought Mike Johnson was, Dennis Hastert was a weak speaker. Move over, Dennis Hastert. There is a new champion for weakness. This is the weakest speaker we've had in the modern era, and he is now leading his party, I think, to doom. This is politically absolutely, he's self-neutered. The inability to do any of this stuff, they're all going to wish they were doing something to have they're going to wish someday they tried to hold Trump accountable. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but perhaps November of 2026. There's a reason results matter more than promises. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan has become America's largest injury law firm. For the last 35 years, they've recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. It includes cases where insurance companies offered next to nothing, short of shortchanging, seeing if they could get away with it. And Morgan & Morgan fought back, and they won millions. In Pennsylvania, one client was awarded $26 million. It was a staggering 40 times the amount that the insurance company originally offered. That offer, $650,000, whatever it took to sort of get away without paying. So with more than 1,000 lawyers across the country, Morgan & Morgan knows how to deliver for everyday people. So if you're injured, you're looking for a lawyer, check out forthepeople.com/ToddCast or dial #law, #529 on your cell phone. And remember, all law firms are not the same. So give Morgan & Morgan a look. Their fee is free unless they win.